Hey there, good people, it's your Crippled Critic, and this week I'm going to take a look at a demo for a new indie game called Detention. So, Detention is a 2D point and click survival horror game set in the 1960s Taiwan while they were under martial law. The game has two playable characters, both high school students, who wake up in an empty high school after a typhoon warning. The two main characters, Wei and Ray, soon realize that they're trapped inside their school and that the campus has changed in very strange ways, now haunted by evil creatures. Detention was made by a Taiwanese game company called Red Candle Games. The game designers wanted to make a game heavily influenced by Taiwanese and East Asian culture. They take from many Taiwanese religions like Taoism, Buddhism, Chinese mythology, and they also draw from local Taiwanese cultural references. One of the main designers, who goes by the nickname Coffee, once said that he couldn't find any game out there that could represent his culture, and he wanted to share with the world the place he grew up in. That being said, Detention's main goal isn't to educate you on Taiwanese culture, it just uses that as background in order to make a terrifying story. Before I get into the control options for this, I do want to just remind everyone that this is a demo, and as such, it might change when the final product is released, including parts of the gameplay and the controls. The gameplay in Detention is very straightforward. You just click on anything to interact. Like most point and click games, you can play the whole game with just a mouse. You left click to do most things, like click on items and drag items from your inventory. The inventory can be accessed at any time by moving the mouse at the bottom left hand corner of the screen. To move your character, you left click in the general direction you want them to go, or hold left click down. Either way works. The only other time you use another button is when you're dealing with enemies. During the game, you'll encounter these creatures called the Lingered, and they'll attack you as soon as you get too close. In order to get past them, you have to hold your breath. To hold your breath, you right click. You only have to tap the right button in order to hold your breath. You have about 15 seconds while holding your breath, so you need to time it just right in order to get past enemies unseen. I would say dealing with enemies is about the only time in the game that you have to move a little faster, but I think it's more quick thinking than quick motion because your character doesn't really move faster when you click faster. It should be very easy for gamers with fine motor skill impairments to play this game. If I could point out a few things to improve on for the actual game, it's that there isn't really an options menu to speak of, so maybe that's something they could add. Detention is already very straightforward and doesn't really need a tutorial, but it would be nice to have an options menu just to change a few things, like maybe enlarging the subtitles or a brightness feature. Detention desperately needs a brightness scale, just for gamers with visual impairments really. Also, I did say that you can play the whole game with a mouse, which is true, but there isn't any way to go back to the main menu without pressing escape on your keyboard. So if you are just using a mouse, as soon as you start playing the game, there's no way to escape it without beating it. I recommend putting the game in windowed mode at the beginning because that way you can close the game whenever you want. This works fine for me and it wasn't too distracting. Still, if the designers added a button or a menu at the bottom of the screen somewhere that just let you go back to the main menu, that would be great, and it wouldn't have to be in the way, it could be doable. Like I said before, there are subtitles throughout the game and there's no spoken dialogue. Detention's soundtrack is dark and unsettling, fusing both electronic rock and traditional Asian instruments. It sets the mood, and some of the background noises can get your heart pumping at just the right time. For gamers with hearing impairments, it shouldn't be too important for them to hear any of these noises in order to beat the game. They just might not experience every little scare the game has to offer. Speaking of scares, I think I should give a seizure warning just to be safe. During some scare moments, there will be really quick flashes of light that pop up on the screen. It's rare, but it can happen. Just really for those who are sensitive to that kind of thing. Might possibly have a scene like this even in this video, so fair warning. And to quote what the game hilariously said at the beginning of the demo, people with heart diseases shouldn't play this. Detention's story and art style is going to be a lot more bizarre than what a lot of gamers are probably used to. For starters, there's not many horror games that take place in a high school, but don't worry, there's nothing cliche about this high school experience. With just the first few puzzles I've done in the demo, I've already had to do some really disturbing things that I've never done before in a game. Now, I know very little about Taiwan's history, but just having the game set in the 1960s with their country under martial law and having many of the high school instructors be ex military, it really gives the game a harsh feel before anything supernatural even happens. The only other games I can think of that even come close to this kind of style is the Siren games, but I also see a little bit of the game mechanics from Lone Survivor. Both have really good horror elements. I thoroughly enjoyed playing this demo for Detention. It hits all of my personal favorite things in survival horror: great soundtrack, really creepy atmosphere, and a strange religious influence from Asian cultures I don't quite understand. It sets it up for a really scary experience. The graphics are really good for the budget, and I gotta say, the demo is really impressive for how long it is. It took me about 2 hours to beat the game, which is a lot longer than most demos that I've played. In fact, many fully finished indie games aren't this long, so good on you, Red Candle Games, for not skimping on the demo. If they added a few things like an options menu or a way to get back to the main menu of the game, that would be perfect, but I am really looking forward to the full-fledged game when it comes out in January. Look for this game in the coming months on Steam. It's available for PC, Mac, and Linux. Well guys, I hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and like always, thanks for watching, and I will see you later.